Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Get Geek podcast, where we celebrate geek, nerd, and pop culture. Each week, we deliver the best analysis for fans, by fans, on anything related to movies, TV, video games, comics, anime, and manga. We talk geek. And now, here's the Get Geek podcast.
Salutations, one and all, to this marvelicious episode of the Get Geek podcast. I will be the madman directing for it today. I'm AJ.
This is Jose, and that was my dog running like a maniac in the background.
Eli.
And this is Walt, hopped up on super soldier serum.
How very topical. Because today we're going to be talking about Marvel's Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Indeed. But first, let's do our quick little disclaimers. As always, you guys know we are recording remotely. I am here, and Walt and AJ and Eli are elsewhere, recording remotely, safely. So please, if there are any sound issues or artifacts, please let us know. Feedback is always welcome. You can always let us know at Get Geek Podcast on Instagram. You can reach out to us there. And of course, the best way to support your favorite podcast crew is to like, rate, share, and subscribe to your favorite podcast. You can find us where all your favorite podcasts are sold. And again, that's the best way to support your favorite crew. This particular month, we've actually our host, Captivate, has partnered with Podchaser on their second Reviews for Good, #ReviewsForGood campaign. So for every review that you guys write for us in April, Podchaser donates 25 cents to Meals on Wheels, America's Go Further Fund. Okay, so any replies to reviews, any replies that we have, will double the donation. So if you guys write a review and we reply to it, we're going to be raising a lot more money for a great cause. They'll be matching all donations on Captivate hosted podcasts like ours up to $1,000. So it's a really great cause. The Go Further Fund is helping to deliver healthy meals, social contact, and support from seniors impacted by the pandemic. This is a great opportunity for all of us to do our part to help out those in need. So please, if you are ever thinking of liking, rating, sharing, and subscribing to the Get Geek podcast, now is the best time, because you can actually do some good at the same time by liking, rating, sharing, and subscribing. All right. So thank you very much for all of that. Moving right along, AJ, why don't you guide us through it, please, sir?
Yes, so it just came to mind that before we even talk about Marvel and the Winter Soldier, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, there is a little trailer that does bear mentioning. Came out a couple of days ago. It's for another Marvel title called Loki.
Is there some issue with you saying Marvel since you're the DC guy? You're like,
I think I needed that coffee a little more than I thought I did.
I am hopped up on caffeine, so I will help you guys out to remember the English language words and things like that. Yeah. So
Yeah,
the trailer was awesome. What did everyone think about that? What did you guys think about it?
I thought that for a time organization, because that trailer mentions an organization known as the Timekeepers, I found it personally very interesting and funny that because Loki is in turn there for screwing up the timeline, they make him cover every single thing he has ever said in his life. And he has to I need you to sign off on this, sign off on that.
Kidding me?
You know what though? Like,
On another paper
how could
thing.
that possibly be
Yeah.
everything he's ever said? I've probably said more than that in my life, and I haven't been alive for thousands of years. That has to be like a portion of the document, perhaps. Maybe that was like the final, like everything he said since he's been in the MCU or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Or since he messed with time.
Or that's possible too. Maybe since he messed with time in the the TVA, the Time Variance Authority is who Mobius, played by one Owen Wilson, is
Lightning McQueen.
yeah. I'm actually interested in it from that perspective because I haven't seen Owen Wilson in anything really interesting or good in a long time, and I like Owen Wilson. I think the last time I saw him in something where he was good and fun and comedic was like Zoolander, maybe. So
I remember he did what is it, Marley and Me with the dog.
yeah. Oh, I heard that was pretty good. I heard that was
Yeah,
pretty. That was actually like
that
a
was
nice
that was
movie.
pretty good also. But he hasn't done a lot since.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Eli, what you think of the trailer?
I personally like the fact that they're getting more into like the time traveling sort of
Yes.
thing
Timey
for
wimey,
timey
wibbly wobbly.
wimey. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think it's now that they introduce that sort of element to the movies. I think it's good to expand more on that, and that could bring
Yes.
more people.
Such as, which I think is already confirmed, right?
Wait, what's his name?
Kang.
Kong.
Kong the
Oh,
Called
King,
it.
not
Kong
Kong.
the Conqueror.
King.
Yeah,
Kong the
Kong
Conqueror.
of the monsters. Kong of all monsters.
exactly. They did confirm him, right? I think we
Yes.
do have an actor attached to
Yeah,
him.
yeah. What is it?
Nice.
Jonathan Peters from
Yes, from
from a few things.
Lovecraft
Yeah,
Lovecraft.
Lovecraft Country.
Uh,
He was also in the Five
yes,
Bloods recently. He's already confirmed to be in Ant-Man 3 as Kang the Conqueror. That much we know.
there you go.
So that's confirmed,
Nice.
which I know a couple of us
So
are excited about.
Okay.
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's good that they actually take the time to explore this too, because, and I know Eli's gonna hate me for this. I thought the way Endgame treated their time rules was very convoluted. So maybe
I don't
this will
know.
clear some of that up.
Well,
Okay, but
we know that Kang gets
That's where
mad
I have
when stuff like that happens because he's
yeah,
the only
and
one that's allowed
that's
to
where I
control it.
have my questions on the show because
Mhm.
they're introducing the TVA. Where the heck were they during Endgame? I hope they do answer
yeah,
that question because that's a big question.
yeah.
You know, if they're all of a sudden coming out of the shadows, why not come out during probably one of the most important things to happen within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right?
Well, maybe they did, and we just didn't know it.
I agree.
And again, I hope that they do explore it because if they don't, I think it's kind of a fail on Marvel's part because
Yeah,
you have to explain that. That's just my thought. You know,
I'm sure they will.
I
So.
I think the trailer has already hinted that they're gonna give us an idea why that's the case because if you watch
good.
carefully, they're walking through some scenes like Loki and Mobius and the other TVA agents, and nobody knows
Mhm.
they're there. People are definitely not noticing that they're there. They're walking like basically like through people. Nobody's noticing that these armed guards are in the middle of these situations. So I'm thinking that the TVA, I mean, also they're always there, right? Because they exist outside of time. It doesn't matter whether
Mhm.
they're there or not. They are there, or they could get there. But I think that yeah, like a lot of it is going to be revealed, just like Endgame when we saw the all of the wizards from Doctor Strange fighting in the Endgame battle. I think we're going to see a little bit of a reveal like that as well, and I think it's already kind of been hinted at.
That
Yeah.
works.
Hmm.
You know.
Cool beans. So that kind of sounds like the end of that discussion. So now we can open up to. I was about to say Marvel and the Winter Soldier again.
Blue Marvel.
Why? Falcon and the Winter
We're gonna
Soldier.
have a
Just say
malfunction
Sam.
because we're not
Sam and Bucky.
we're not talking about DC, so you're gonna have a malfunction for real. I think.
I know.
Yeah. So, character we're gonna bring up first is actually let's look at the villain or quote unquote
Mhm.
the villain first,
Which one?
which is Karli Morgenthau.
Okay.
We got a little more of a fleshed out. You got to see more of her story in these past two episodes. The last episode, especially harrowing, because we'll get to that later. Um, so what are you guys' thoughts on her? First of all, this is what I want to know.
Hmm.
All right, I guess I can go
Yeah,
first.
go ahead.
We're up to episode 4 as of this recording and stuff. So like AJ did say, she's kind of being fleshed out a little bit more here. And in typical Marvel fashion, one of the things that I love about Marvel is that, especially lately, because originally Marvel did had a quote unquote Marvel villain problem, right? But it seems like especially lately they've heard the fans and they've really fleshed out a lot of their villains and making them interesting in very different ways because they're not your typical twirling the mustache villain. They do have real reasons And
Yeah.
in their minds, their reasons are valid, that they believe they're actually trying to do good in their perspective. And Karli is another character that follows the same lines, maybe more so than some of these other villains, because she's trying to repatriate sort of all the people that were left. What's the word that I'm saying?
The blip
Disenfranchised because
Yeah.
of the blip. I hate saying
or
the
the
word
the
blip.
return.
It's
Blip
just
sounds
Wait, the blip was
awesome, though.
it was the blip. Was the blip of was the return, right? I always forget which one is which.
they call it the
Yeah.
blip.
Yeah,
They continue to call it the blip.
decimation
Why, I have no idea.
and the blip.
Both of them I'm not too cool with.
Both of those suck.
But the blip really sounds very flippant. You know,
I would prefer the
Um,
unsnap, and that still
yeah,
sounds kind of dumb.
Snap.
or the snapping, right?
Snapping it.
But she's trying to kind of help these people that really have become almost refugees in their own countries and
Mhm.
in their own world, because the world moved on from them in the past 5 years since the blip occurred, and they're having a very difficult time trying to get them back into society.
Yeah.
5 years is a long time, and so she doesn't agree with the methods and the methodology that's being used right now, and she's using it. Of course, she's going to the extreme to do it, but she's a very fascinating character in that respect. What do you guys think?
I'd say I'd have to agree with how they're changing it up a lot. I can see that, but I don't know. I just don't like this villain because she seems almost like childish a little bit.
Well,
In some,
She is a child.
she is
She
a
is.
child.
She is young.
She's young.
She's supposed to be
Very
young.
young.
Mhm. She's supposed to be like no older than like maybe her 20s, maybe her early 30s, but probably not. Probably not even that.
Mhm.
I don't know. I just seem she needs to be a little bit more fleshed out, and I think the whole idea of flag smashers, I don't really like that either.
That is kind of weird, because it almost makes it a terrorist organization
Yeah.
just by the name alone.
The
You
flag
know,
smashers.
it seems like an odd naming convention for what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and yeah, that's basically it for me. I just don't like the whole villainy thing of this show.
Well, I mean, in a sense, I can see where they're coming from with the flag smashers because, well, one of their goals is, we want a world without borders.
Right.
So,
Mhm.
what is what's one of those things that represents borders? Oh, well, a flag,
Nationalist
uh,
flags.
flag of a country.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Country has borders. There's that. I mean, it's not perfect. You're right. But I mean, what other names would there be to work with?
You
I
could
mean,
go world without borders.
And
That
then
would-
they sound like a charity.
See, yeah, that would sound too positive. They needed to sound
Right.
kind of negative, I think, in order to make the characters work. For me personally, I kind of understand the plot. I get where Marvel's going to like create another relatable villain. I just don't really. I don't know if it's the actress. I don't want to say that she's a bad actress because that's definitely not the case. But I'm not relating with her as much as I would want to, because I think Eli's kind of right. I think they needed to portray her as somebody a little more thoughtful, and she's just like somebody who's a little too immature and reactionary. So it's hard to identify with somebody who's just like kind of doing the stupidest thing that she possibly can in most moments. There's too many.
Yeah,
There's
it
too many
seems-
moments where the other characters around her are her conscience, and I think that she needs to be her own
Yeah.
conscience a little bit more, because they had that great scene I think with Sam where they had a conversation where he tried to talk
Yeah.
her down. But I think that
And
I'm not a huge fan of her character thus far. Eli, were you going to say something?
Oh well, yeah, and I'm gonna pass it on to Walt.
Okay.
I just want to add on how I think she's childish. It seems like a lot of the actions, like the things that she does, is very like sort of immature.
Yeah.
Because like for instance, when it came to I think that rich people and like that mansion or something,
where
she
they
like
blew it up.
yeah, it was like
Mhm.
seriously, it was And I get that it's like, I guess you could say it's the power going to her head, but I still
Yeah.
just don't like that whole idea of stuff like that.
We already have
I
another
think
character
though,
for that, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I think that's kind of the point of Karli is that she's this idealist, but an immature idealist that doesn't really understand the world and the world actions, and her thing is the only way that we're going to get people to listen is through violence and shock and awe and things like that, and it's immaturity, no doubt, and I think that's kind of the point of the character, that that's the reason why that conversation with Sam was really really impactful, because here's Sam and he's kind of like the old KG veteran who's been through the wars literally, and you have Karli there who's kind of like a newbie at this, and you can see how her view was kind of changing because of the eloquent points that Sam was making to her.
Hmm.
So I think that's kind of the point of Karli, is that you have this girl who wants to right the world but doesn't have the maturity yet to know how to do it.
We still
And
have
I
a
hope that her character kind of progresses in these last two
yeah.
episodes.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
we have a couple left, so I hope that for me at least, there's a little more meat on the bone here.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's move on to our next. I will say this guy is a true born villain, and that
Yes.
is Baron Zemo.
I love him.
Yes.
So I'll just start this one off. I think, like, I thought the buddy comedy was just gonna only be coming from Sam and Bucky, but with him as the third wheel, it's actually that much funnier because he's just like. So you have Sam, who's a little bit more loose. You have Bucky, who's reserved, and then you just have Zemo, who's like not only the odd one out, but like in that dance club, it was just like so stiff.
He's a
And
party
I do
animal, dude.
I
Oh
have to
my
mention something
gosh.
about the dance club real quick.
Yeah.
And this is the repercussions of WB and release the Snyder cut. There was a movement called release the Zemo cut, which Marvel jumped on very, very quickly, because what they did was they released a YouTube video of Baron Zemo dancing in the
Mr.
club for a complete hour and a half, I believe.
I think it's an
So
hour, an hour and a half of Daniel
yeah,
Bruhl
it's
just
something ridiculous.
doing his
So
club
good on you, Marvel, for
thing.
doing that.
Bro.
This is some stuff that I can get behind, a fan base campaign that I can easily get behind for sure.
Definitely.
Yep.
Yeah. And so that was a good opener. How do you guys feel? Do you guys feel okay with how they're treating Zemo so far?
Yes, definitely. I love that. I loved him in Civil War, and I love him even more in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because he seems like, I don't know how to say it. Let me just think about it. Hold
Mhm.
on. He seems like the type of dude that like everybody like knows, right? Like
He's got
He's the devil you know.
connections. He's
he's the
connected.
devil,
Yeah.
he's got connections, and I love that about him because that makes his character that much more interesting. And he is, I don't know. I'm just thinking that he has like some plan that he's gonna
He's
that he
he's kind of like the Crowley of this
Yes, he's the
universe.
Crowley. He's that sort of character that
Supernatural reference, by the way.
yeah, supernatural. But yeah, I absolutely love his character. Well,
Um, for me, Daniel Bruhl's portrayal of Zemo has been completely awesome. He is in his limited time in the MCU, he has been one of my favorites, because I think the way that he portrays his character and the way that Marvel has fleshed out his character, he's one of these characters that has a lot of layers to him. Especially in Civil War, he wasn't your typical villain where he's trying to rule the world. He had a very specific thing. He wanted revenge against the Avengers for what happened to Sokovia, and the way that he went about it was just brilliant, because he knew that he could not take on the Avengers head on. He was more of like, you know what, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of concoct this grand master plan, which shows how brilliant he is to have the Avengers crumble from within. And it's almost, and Jose, you probably remember this, the Thomas Jane Punisher,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
where I completely did not like that movie, but it's kind of like what Daniel Bruhl is doing here, but to perfection, where Thomas Jane was kind of trying to, his Punisher was trying to get the bad guys at odds with themselves, and he did it very, very poorly in that movie. But
Mm-hmm.
um, this being Marvel, they're doing it awesome here. He is, he's he's Loki light right now,
Yeah.
right?
To an
Because
extent.
he plays both. Yeah, he plays both sides of the fence here. You know, there are times where he's all in with Bucky and Sam, and there are times clearly shown in this last episode where he's basically doing things on his own to further his agenda.
That's what's
He
interesting. Yeah, I think.
right. I think they're setting him up for a huge role in the MCU, and maybe we can get into that a little bit later. But I'm gonna let you guys chime in on the awesomeness that is Zemo. Jose, give us that knowledge.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to a few points that you made, Walt. That what makes him a good villain in one way is he's the only villain without either superpowers or the support of a supervillain that has superpowers in any Marvel movie. Think about it.
Right.
The only other one that comes close is I- is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Not Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Look, we're getting confused today on titles. The Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Excuse me. That's the only
Mhm.
one because you have Nick Nolte's character, or who is, or not Nick Nolte. Excuse me, Robert Redford, who's the senator, right? But anyway,
Right.
getting back to Baron Zemo, I was getting to a point, I think, in that third episode where the quips were getting a little too heavy for me, to be honest. But they found a decent balance because I know that Zemo he's a very intelligent character, so he like definitely gets sarcastic and all of that in the comics. But they pulled it back, and I think what they're doing is they're keeping a suitable amount of menace to the character. They
Yes.
showed us for the first time like how physically capable he is, even though he's not a supervillain with superpowers. He could still kick some butt. We got to see that, which was pretty cool. And yeah, Daniel Bruhl has been doing a great job of portraying him with whatever role they're giving the character, whether it's to be comedic in that moment or to be, whatever else, to be menacing. He's got some great one-liners. And so far, I think the character has been doing a much better job of being like a semi-relatable villain for me
Mhm.
than Karli Morgenthau has. But yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed him so far, and I've enjoyed seeing him don the mask as well. And
He's got a great look.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's the other thing. He's got a great look because he can play smug with the best of them, and at the same time, there's that condescending demeanor that he has as well,
yeah, like a good
which kind of
example
lends.
for me,
Mhm.
really quick. A good example is when they were talking about Marvin Gaye, Trouble Man, and he understood it
Yes.
more than Bucky did. And like even Sam was like, I hate this guy, but like, yeah, he understands this album more than you do, bro. Like that was
Yep.
one of those moments because he was still condescending and a jerk about how he was like, yes,
Mhm.
this is the African American experience. But he was right. So like, yes, even Sam was like, okay, bro, okay, fine, whatever. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on Zemo thus far. Again, not perfect, but we've got 2 episodes left to really make this a home run. So I'm hoping for that.
All right. Now let's skirt the boundary between the dark side and the light side with John Walker, right?
Yes.
With John Walker. Oh my goodness, John Walker,
The new Captain America,
quote
Yeah.
unquote.
aka U.S. Agent in the comics, right?
But not yet in the
Yeah.
show,
Not yet in the show.
which is the reverse of his backstory, kind of.
Yeah, interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah. So let's start off with general impressions, especially given because I want to lend a point of conversation to
Right on.
something in a little bit. But let's just start off with general consensus. What do you think of the guy?
Let's see. I'll start off with Mr. Walker, and then I'll throw to one of you gentlemen to give your thoughts as well. Um, this is to me, he's the best villain of the show so far. With Baron Zemo, who's not necessarily the villain, right? Even though he's a villainous character, he's the close second for me right now. I think in terms of like who the villain is. Um, I think that Wyatt Russell has been doing a really good job of portraying him as. See, okay, so this is why I make the comparison with Karli Morgenthau. I think they're doing a better job of portraying him as somebody who wants to really, 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 really do the right thing, but at the same time, the thing that holds him back is a little bit of immaturity. I mean, he's a veteran and he's been around for a bit and he has some understanding of what he wants to do, but it's a little bit of immaturity and certainly a little bit of narcissism, which is what Karli has as well. But I think he's played it so much better thus far, in my opinion, because well, Karli, I don't find many moments where I find her to be likable. There are moments where I actually find John Walker to be likable. I think that intro, I think it was the start of episode 2, where they showed us a little bit of his backstory, and he had his conversation with his girlfriend and with Battlestar about why he wanted to be Captain America and a little bit of what it meant to him. I thought that was a great conversation, and I think again, like he's really got that balance down pat. There are moments where you're like, okay, this guy's really trying to help people, and then there are moments where he does really unhinged stuff, like he did in the most recent episode, and
Yeah.
that's where you see like the balance. So like, yeah, I mean, Aaron Kellyman as Karl Morgenthau doing a great job. Daniel Bruhl as at Helmut Zemo doing a great job. I think so far though, Wyatt Russell is my highlight. And I think also
Yeah.
it's because of how he relates to Sam in the story as well, and Ken to Captain America.
I
So yeah.
definitely love.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
yeah, I definitely love how they fleshed his character out, and I especially love like the influence Battlestar, right,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
has on him and the choices he makes, and it's that immaturity because spoiler alert, we see in the last episode with him talking with Battlestar about taking the serum or not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that just shows how his influences and how immature he is. And one thing I just really want to point out because I absolutely love the scene is when he's holding the shield, but it's bloodied.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just like completely describes his character. And yeah, how nobody can basically hold the shield.
He's willing to get his hands dirty.
Yeah.
It's amazing how in one episode the MCU got really, really dark. I think this is probably the darkest that we've seen the MCU get outside of the Netflix shows. And this show is starting to remind me a little bit of the darkness of those shows as well. Um, John Walker to me is a a great portrayal by Wyatt Russell, um, in terms of how. So I'm struggling to start this because there's a lot of things going on in my head about this, but
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting how these conversations kind of relate back to an earlier MCU film, which would be The Incredible Hulk. And The Incredible Hulk was really the first time that we've seen in the MCU, outside of Steve Rogers, the effect of a super serum on a person. And
Mm-hmm.
this was, and I'm referring to Emil Blonsky, who is
The
the
Abomination.
Abomination, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's dead on with the name, and what it seems to do, and they even referenced it in one of these episodes. What the super serum does, it does a couple of things. It not only enhances the body, but it really, really enhances the characteristics of an individual. And you've seen it with Blonsky. Blonsky was one of these soldier types that was really, really focused on doing the mission regardless of the collateral damage. And we're starting to see a little bit of that with Wyatt Russell's
Yeah.
portrayal of John Walker as well, because he does seem to be a very virtuous character. You've seen it in some of the talks that he's had with Battlestar, But at the same time, I think the pressures of being Captain America is really, really weighing on him. And you know what? I do believe that part of the fame is also getting into his head as well. He's drinking the Kool-Aid because of these narcissistic things that he's doing. Well, it's like, well, I'm Captain America. He's taking it a little bit too far. And I think now that he has the super serum, and especially now that he's lost his moral compass in Battlestar, spoiler alert, um, I think now you're going to really see that downward spiral of this character because, like Eli said before, Battlestar was kind of the guy that brought him back to the middle with a lot of these things. Now that Battlestar is no longer there for him, he's literally relying on his worldview, and now that's even more enhanced now that he's taken the super soldier serum. And I think now you're going to see that real downward spiral of his character. Um,
Yeah, John or
I think he's doing.
Battlestar seemed to be his moral compass, well, very much.
Right, exactly.
Mhm.
He's the guy that kind of kept them, focused and say, you know what, maybe you're doing a little bit too much here. Maybe you need to dial it back. Maybe you need to look at it in this way. Um, AJ.
Yeah. So two things. I kind of think they just offed Battlestar way too soon, in my opinion. Like, I get that it was, like you said, it's to send John Walker a bit closer to the edge, but like, damn.
I know it was kind of out of left field, right? Because I think
Yeah.
we kind of, given his history, we kind of expected a little bit more out of Battlestar, right?
Yeah,
He's
he was
supposed to
going to
be
stick around a little
a
longer.
superhero, basically, just like the
Exactly.
rest. Hmm.
Yeah. And then the last thing I want to address before we have to move on, the treatment of this guy's actor. What the hell, guys?
Oh, they're threatening him, aren't they?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
We talked about this a couple of weeks ago.
yes, we did.
toxicity is back and it is unwarranted. Like, why? People gotta understand, like, it just gotta chill. Let them take it where they need to take it so you can fully appreciate it by the end. Like,
I think the problem is that people can't disconnect the actor from the character.
yeah, and
And
there's that too.
you know what? This is gonna sound weird, but the fact that he's getting death threats lends to the fact of how well he's portraying the character
Which means they should
and
be
how
praising
well
him.
he's doing his job. You know,
Should be yeah.
yeah, exactly. He's turned a character that could kind of be one of these. He's a Captain America
Wannabe.
wannabe, and he's really turned it around into something that's his own. You know.
This is
Um,
getting really
so
out of hand because even in a lot of media that I enjoy, two things that I love: Last of Us 2, Attack on Titan. There's a whole toxicity around certain characters killing other characters, and it's like, it's a fictional character, right? You know that the actor
Yeah.
is not responsible for that part of it. One quick
especially
thing.
Attack on Titan, right?
Yeah, there
Because I
was
think Attack on Titan,
there was a
both
character,
both
yeah.
sides of the political arena wants to kind of claim that show, right?
Yeah, it's been a weird conversation around that show in terms of like whether it's a right leaning or a left leaning show, and I have my own opinions about that. We talked about that on the podcast. That's a whole other thing. The last thing I want to say about John Walker is that I actually do love one of the character moments that I've loved that you've seen a couple of times is he's almost like speaking to Eli's point about his immaturity. He is like a kid sometimes when he gets beat up by somebody with super soldier serum. He's like he almost sulks. I really like it. He was like when he got beat and then he got beat up by the Dora Milaje, and he was like they didn't even have super soldier serum. Like he felt like he got bullied. I think that's a cool character moment, and I really really enjoy that from Wyatt Russell as John Walker as well.
Yeah. I think it lends itself to the fact that he's feeling all this pressure to be Captain America.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he's failing at it so far. So, it's really weighing on his
Right.
mind.
He has all these talents, but he still can't quite bring it together because he could probably fight the Dora Milaje one-on-one if he could get outside of his head, get outside of the thought of being Captain America. He could probably take him one-on-one. But yeah, that's the character for me so far.
And so, speaking of people who should be Captain America, let's move on to Sam. Good old Sam. And it's interesting here that this is a discussion I know Walt's been wanting to have, so I'll pose this as ancillary to Sam, I guess. Sam went and visited someone who was actually supposed to be another Captain America.
Yeah, a very controversial figure in not only this MCU universe, but in comic book lore in general.
Hmm.
You know, that would be Isaiah Bradley. He was a part of a comic book run back in 2003. Let me see if I can pull up the name of the comic book. Truth, Red, White, and Black. And so uh, that character is portrayed by the wonderful character actor Carl Lumbly. Um, and I don't know if they've done enough with the character so far, and I don't think that they will, because like me and Jose were talking about before we actually started recording,
Hmm.
here we are two episodes out of completing the series, and we they showed him for like 5 minutes, and they really haven't gone back to the character. And it's interesting because it kind of meshes with Sam's journey in this show, because Sam has been really the one that's been portrayed as um they've given him a lot of leeway in terms of showing how the Avengers work, you know, how they work when they're not avenging, right? They have real jobs, they have real financial world concerns. They deal with racism, which is a topic that was brought up, I believe, in the second episode, right?
Yeah, Isaiah. Along with
Right.
Isaiah.
The second episode really, really leaned into those themes. And after the second episode, I was really excited because I thought, this was a real chance for Marvel to kind of like, bring that to the forefront and really deal with it within the MCU. And they haven't really gone back to that. And I'm a little disappointed in that.
Well, I think that they will. Like when Falcon is going to get his shield, will he? He
Well,
probably
we
will.
don't know. We
Okay.
don't know, because both characters have been Captain America in the comics,
Mm.
both Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So we don't know. We assume that Falcon will get it because, Bucky is insistent on that, but we really don't know. And
I think that this would be the perfect time to bring him in when he gets the shield, right? Because like he could be like sort of his mentor with this, right?
uh,
Maybe.
I would say it's difficult for
Wait, what is?
Isaiah Bradley to be a mentor, because his history was, the history of the whole thing is that once Steve Rogers got the super soldier serum, and this is kind of leaning into real world politics and events. Um, Within the comic book universe, they experimented on African Americans using the super soldier serum,
Hmm.
and he was the only one that really the serum took.
Didn't die,
What?
basically.
Yeah, he didn't die. All the other subjects basically died.
Hmm.
He's the only one that survived and got the effects of it to a certain extent, because it also enhanced other things. But um the interesting thing about that is that he actually stole a suit, a Captain America suit, and the US, and in the vein of doing government work, but then the government went ahead and imprisoned him afterwards. That's how it was in the comic books. They hinted at that in the show, but they didn't really flesh it out. So it's going to be hard for him to be a mentor because he's got all these anti-government feelings, and Captain America, to a certain extent, is kind of like the poster boy for the US government.
When I say mentor, I don't mean like mentor, but I think like it would be like he was gaining knowledge from not just Isaiah Bradley, but also Steve Rogers. So like he has ideas of how it can go, right, and stuff like that,
Hey
or
Jose, let me
whatever.
ask you a question.
Hmm.
um is Steve Rogers still alive in this universe?
I think he is.
Yes.
I
He's
think he is
just
too.
old.
He's just very old.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
probably came
Okay.
back in Endgame and was just like he just wanted to live out the rest of his old life in peace or something like that. I don't know.
Okay.
I think we're gonna find out before the end of the show. Actually, I think we're gonna find out the status of Steve Rogers. I think that's something that's
Yeah.
going to be addressed.
Okay.
So as far as Sam and Isaiah Bradley, let's put them together, like AJ suggested, because I think that they are definitely very intimately connected in the storyline here. I don't think that Isaiah Bradley could be a mentor because sadly, I think he's already served this story's purpose the way that they've written it. His only purpose was to show the consequence and the ownership that the government has over these heroes or tries to assert over these heroes. We've seen it in Civil
Mm-hmm.
War. We've seen it all over these movies about the government trying to control superpowered people. And this is just another example. And it's meant to drive home the point that we actually saw in the first episode. It was when they started addressing a little bit of racism with the banking scene where they were denying them the bank loan that's meant to, at least in my mind, that's meant to deal with the idea of redlining and sort of how African Americans have been traditionally in the past and even to some extent in the present disenfranchised into getting banking loans and getting housing and all this other stuff. I think that was meant to kind of touch upon that. And I really, really liked those character moments. I think for Sam, I knew this was going to be a great show because I think even from the first scene, there was a very, very subtle opening for him in the show. It's just him ironing a shirt, and the shield is there, and there's these great character moments because I've actually loved Anthony Mackie forever. I thought he was a great actor before he was Falcon. He's been in a lot of great movies that I've loved, like Half Nelson and others. um, so him for me has been a complete knockout. I mean, he's my favorite character of the show thus far. Because not only the fact that I enjoy Anthony Mackie, but I think that he's found the perfect balance. All the other characters are struggling to find a little bit of balance, except maybe John Walker on the other side for me, between being a little comedic and a little serious. I think Bucky hits that mark pretty well too, but we're going to talk about him later, obviously. But he's like, I just love how you know, this is why they made this show because of the way that Bucky and Sam have quipped at each other in the past. I still fondly remember the scenes about like, you're not going to move your seat up, or like, can you move your
No.
seat up? Nope. And they kind of did that in the show again. I still fondly remember that moment. I think it was in Civil War where Steve Rogers kisses Sharon Carter, and they both just kind of give that like, that's my
Yeah.
boy smile. But yeah, getting back to Sam, I don't want to hijack this about him, and then I'll wrap it up and send it to one of you guys. I've enjoyed the character so far. His action scenes have been the best for me too because they've really taken the Falcon suit and done some awesome creative stuff with it. Even the first episode, that chase through the canyons, sick, amazing. So his action scenes have been great. He's been great with his sister in those scenes where they're kind of addressing how, again, he's trying to live a normal life, and it's really hard because of the blip, stupid name, and because of the fact that he's African American and life sometimes isn't totally normal, let's say, for African Americans in this country, which is again something the show's hinting at and something that we believe generally over here. And yeah, I mean, again, the comedic relief, everything about Sam has been wonderful so far. I think that's really all I can say. I mean, there's just so many good moments for him. So for me, Sam's a total knockout. And I can't wait to actually see what they're going to do to finish off the character and see if he's going to become Captain America or where they're going to go with him from here. So that's basically my thoughts. I mean, Eli, what about you? What did you think about him thus far?
Uh, well, I honestly really liked his character because, as you said, they found like that perfect balance of comedy and seriousness,
Yeah.
and yeah, right. And I just love that this show takes the time for it to go through like the struggles that heroes have to go through,
Mhm.
especially Sam. And honestly, I just love that character, and I love his relationship with Bucky and how they're like pals, like that buddy relationship.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Speaking of Le Bucky, let's deep dive into Le Bucky.
Le Bucky. Androids, wizards, and
Stare.
what was it?
The st-
The stare.
Androids, wizards,
so
and
you-
robots.
one quick thing that I have to say about Sam, I like how he gives people these like these little gesture things that they do. Like with Bucky, it's the stare, and with Zemo, it's the head tilt.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to
Shit.
Bucky. Back to Bucky.
He's gonna
So
confuse you and tilt his head.
yeah.
Right.
So Bucky is a guy that, wow, he's had quite the journey.
Mhm.
All the way from Winter Soldier, because, well, he is the Winter Soldier, to Civil War, where he gets his kind of redemption arc, to Endgame, where he's fighting alongside everyone, to now, where he's still struggling, it seems. So let's open it up from there with his struggling. Um, it's interesting because I mean, I didn't think it would be all completely over once Wakanda like rewired his head, I guess.
Mhm.
It's interesting to see that he's still trying to build himself up because he was originally, when the show started, he was helping this old guy who he killed his son as the Winter Soldier,
Yes.
Yep.
if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And it's like part of his
Therapy.
12-step program
Yeah.
towards like
It is kind of like AA
becoming a
in
normal
in a way,
person.
just a little
Yeah.
bit. Mhm.
And it's just interesting seeing how he like takes it in stride. And I like the added layer that whenever he's talking to Sam, he's like, "You shouldn't have given up the shield. Shield was yours to have. What are you doing? He gave you that shield." And the reason why I like it a lot is because of this one comment he made when his therapist actually sat him and Bucky, I'm not him and Bucky, Sam and Bucky down,
Oh, that scene.
because it gets to this point where he finally airs out why he's so insistent about Sam having the shield.
Mhm.
Because his whole thing is that Cap was the only one who believed in him and knew him for who he was. So he makes the case that by Sam not taking the shield, well, Cap was wrong about you. But then if he's wrong about you, does that mean he's wrong about me?
Mhm.
And so I like that whole domino drop that goes on there.
Mhm. So, I have to agree that I've loved the emotional moments with Bucky in the show so far. Even though Sam has been my favorite character, I think Bucky has had some of my favorite moments in the show, especially in terms of emotional arcs. I think he's so far been the emotional climax of the show because you have that scene where he's with I think it's Ao from the what is it from the Dora Milaje? Dora
Dormelage.
Milaje, yeah,
Dora
Ao,
Milaje.
Ao, played by Florence Kasumba. That scene where she starts to say the words that control him that Zemo used, and he like that's actually a scene where I think we get to see Sebastian Stan show off his acting chops really, really well for the first time in the MCU because he's been in some other really good movies, but he's just kind of had to be like the stoic, like lack of emotion type of character for so long. So to see him break down and cry in that scene actually was really, really interesting and emotional. And I think, like I said, that's my favorite emotional moment of the show thus far. You got to go back to Sam and say that their quips with each other are just fantastic. The way that they kind of play off of each other is great. We definitely did mention already, like the fact that he's kind of playing with his past and he has that guilt over the people that he's killed before. The fact that they make that both intriguing and comedic in that moment where he busts that person that he got sort of got a government position and was in Hydra. He's like basically like gets her arrested and he's like, have a nice day. Um, so I think that's been really entertaining thus far. I'm really looking forward to finding more about what's going on with Adora Milaje though and him. I think that that's been a great angle thus far, and I think it's well past time that they showed us a little bit more about what he went through as the White Wolf, so to speak, in terms of returning to become a more normal person, to like find out what life is like. And another great detail I think is that he has the little notepad that Steve had and he started writing
Yeah.
his own little things in it to kind of like assimilate into modern life the way that Steve did. And it's kind of cool to see. That's a little bit of a parallel that I think is interesting because he leaves the shield to Sam, but he leaves this other aspect of his life to Bucky, who's his best friend in the world. And Sam's one of his closest friends too. Those are his two best friends, right? But I think that that's a
Yeah.
great detail, the way that he passes something on to both of them, and it definitely relates to the great point that you made, AJ, about him feeling the pressure because of the fact that that Steve might have been wrong about Sam and Bucky, and that really weighs on him. So I think that's a great character moment as well.
Yeah. Eli, what are your thoughts on Le Bucky?
Yeah. Before I get into Bucky, I just need to bring this up. People have been walking up to him trying to activate him.
To Sebastian Stan?
That's-
Yeah.
Oh, they're saying the words?
They're saying the
That's
words.
awesome.
this-
I want Mark Hamill to do that to him.
Yeah, I know, right?
You must be Luke Skywalker. And then he starts saying the words. So what
But
else?
anyway,
All the words.
yeah. I actually really like his character because, as you said, I really like the way he's changed over time, and I like how he's become more human through all the movies and the shows. Right?
Yeah.
You can definitely see it now because he's going through like the struggles of trying to, I guess you could say, find who he
Rediscover himself?
rediscover himself,
Mhm.
right? And I think that what you said, AJ, about the whole thing with if he was wrong about Sam, then he would probably be wrong about me. And I know this is gonna sound weird, but I think it would be good if he I don't know. I'm just putting out my thoughts because
Mhm.
honestly I think it would be good to start introducing more of the Winter Soldier side of him. I don't know.
The
I
darker
want to
side.
get more into that.
You want the Winter
We've seen
Soldier
a
back.
little bit here and there, especially in the club scene,
Yeah.
where he really tapped into the Winter Soldier side of him
Mhm.
Yeah.
when he was dealing with those party goers. I guess I don't know who they were.
Yeah.
I don't remember the scene all that well.
Clients of interest.
Those were
I don't
the-
know.
they were basically just trying to intimidate those people in Madripoor. And
Yeah.
they were
Right,
trying
right,
to
right.
basically show that Zemo was in control of the Winter Soldier and he had that as a tool. Remember, he offered
Yes,
it to that
yes.
Yeah.
character.
Mhm.
That's the quick synopsis of that. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But anyway, I love his connection with Zemo. 'Cause
it's not a buddy relationship there.
Oh, they
It's
hate
just
each
like
other.
they just hate each other, just plain out.
Yeah.
Well, Zemo,
And
Zemo
I
doesn't hate
honestly,
him though. Actually, Zemo doesn't
yeah,
really hate him. He just he wants to use him and control him like everybody else. I think, but he hates
Right.
Zemo for
yeah.
sure.
But I love that relationship right there. But anyway,
Yeah,
well,
those are two characters at the extreme of each other.
Did you like those moments with the Dora Milaje though? Because that kind of ties into his Winter
yeah,
Soldier past a little bit. Did you have
yeah.
any?
I would love, as you said, I would love to see more of like his relationship to the Dora Milaje because I mean it's the Dora Milaje. They're just amazing as it is. So having that relationship, exploring that would be pretty cool to see the White Wolf. The
Yeah, I
White
know.
Wolf.
There's only one thing that I'm slightly worried about involving this Dora Milaje thing because there's already talk about like who the secret Marvel character that's going to show up is, and there's already rumors out there.
Hmm.
They're already debunked that it's going to be Black Panther, which would be awesome, but I understand obviously. Tis a
You
shame.
can't do that.
Yeah, that would be a weird way to send him off. I think it's
Yeah.
his movies and all that are
That-
the best way.
they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that on a TV show anyway. I think Feige has been very specific, and this kind of leads into all those fan theories with WandaVision. He's been pretty specific in the fact that what there's not going to be any major revelations in the shows. That's going to be reserved for the films and the movies.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
the TV shows are kind of there to kind of give the film's
Breadcrumbs.
context and flesh out the story a little bit, but you're not going to get major reveals within the shows itself. At least that's the plan, the way that they've explained it so
So
far.
he's setting up the questions with these shows.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
In terms of Bucky's character, he has been consistently one of my favorite characters in the MCU. He does a lot of things, and that's a credit to Sebastian Stan. And I know a lot of the people here on this podcast are big, huge fans of Sam in this show.
Hmm.
And while I do admit that he is the star of the show, I have to say that Sebastian Stan and his portrayal of the Winter Soldier is really the heart of the
I
show.
agree with that.
Um,
Hmm.
and he does, and the amazing thing is, you mentioned the moment where he was talking with Io, that flashback back in Wakanda,
Hmm.
where he finally realized that he was free from the Winter Soldier's grasp, that the activation and the words and stuff
Hmm.
like that.
But not the
And that
past.
was
I
right.
think that was
And that
key.
was a great way of showing him and his emotional range. But I think the beauty of Sebastian Stan is that he does a lot of things without words. And I think that's a great quality that he has, especially in portraying the Winter Soldier. He doesn't have to really verbalize what he's feeling, because you see it all in his face and his expression and his mannerisms. And, you know, they're powerful, the things that he does with those expressions and those mannerisms and stuff. And I think that's why he is a really, really incredibly fascinating character to watch in this series. um I'm kind of like with Eli on this. I would love to see a little bit more of Winter Soldier's story, especially in Wakanda. The thing about it, Wakanda, every his interactions with the Dora Milaje is interesting, because they're basically both the same sides of one coin. You
Yeah.
know, they're not very emotional creatures. They're very
Yeah.
driven in the things that they do. So to watch a series like that, there is a part of me that says that it may not work, just because of the fact that you don't have that sort of conflict between those two groups, right? They would have to introduce something else, which I know that they would, right?
Hmm.
But the Dora Milaje and the Winter Soldier are very much the same character. And so, there's that fear that I have, that, if you introduce two of the same character, it may not make out for a very good show. But again, Sebastian Stan is killing it in this show. And it's just his interactions with everybody else, especially Zemo and Sam, are just priceless. And I need to watch more. I need to see more.
The only thing that I would want to see on this show involving the Winter Soldier, unfortunately, is him fighting Isaiah Bradley. I would like to see that fight, actually. Um,
Yeah, and they've already mentioned that they do not like each other. They've had interactions in the
yes.
past, right?
They fought like many, many years ago when he was still the Winter Soldier. They sent Isaiah
Hmm.
Bradley after the Winter Soldier, and he was basically the only one who beat him, but he didn't kill him. Like he took his arm or something like that. He said he destroyed his arm. Um,
Right.
Oh.
what
If by beat you mean I took your arm
Yeah.
off.
What I would like to see, what I think would work, I don't think it would work to go back and make like a whole show about him being the Winter Soldier, at least not a live action one. I'd watch an animated show about
Yeah.
it. I think that would be a good way to approach it. Because I think we don't necessarily need his backstory as the Winter Soldier. I think we kind of got that, the high points. So if you just want a show where it's
Mhm.
action, him kicking butt as the Winter Soldier, I think animated is the way to go for that. And you could have
You
Sebastian
can
Stan be
also,
in the role as well, for sure.
yeah, you can also make it a spy thriller, also, because that's one of the things that made Civil War so great.
Yeah.
As a
I'm
villain or
sorry,
as
not
as a hero though?
as a Winter Soldier, as a spy thriller.
Okay. Mhm.
I'm on the fence on that. I kind of I like Bucky as a hero. He's fascinating as a villain. So I'm on the fence on that one.
Okay.
If you do happen to do Dora Milaje and Winter Soldier, what you can do is like I guess, a little bit like of an introduction because he was an outsider then. So he wasn't exactly welcome. So maybe you could have like some sort of thing where they're forced to work together, but again, it's very unlikely and I could see why it's not exactly the best idea, but you can make it work.
Yeah, I guess you can kind of mimic the scene in Black Panther when T'Challa and Suri went on that mission at the very beginning.
Yeah.
I never freeze. You know, that whole mission. I maybe, you have that and the weird ways on how the Wakandans do things a very certain way, and then Bucky does his way, the Bucky way. But anyway, we're digressing here. Let's move on.
And so our last topic of this session is going to be some of the more tertiary characters. First and foremost, who I want to bring to the forefront is Sharon Carter. It is very interesting to me what happened to her. Like,
Mhm.
I knew that she was going to catch some flack for stealing the shield, but to see how far it actually went, that was like, huh, okay. Uh, wow. She really got the short end of the stick, didn't she?
Yeah, that's kind of messed
Yeah.
up. Like everybody else seems to have gotten a pardon. Why can't she just go home and get one too? I'm a little confused about that, to be honest with you. What do you
I I have a really far out there theory.
What? Oh God.
speak it
So
into existence?
Sharon, for all her troubles, looks like she's done incredibly well for herself. She has rare paintings that should be in museums. She has her own satellite. I don't know. That feels like it's a little bit too
Is
successful.
she the power broker?
Like power broker successful.
Interesting.
Hmm.
So I'm my spider senses are tingling, and I think if not the right hand of the power broker, she is the power
I
broker.
think you're right.
That's an
But
interesting
that
swerve
is
there.
I think
I have my
it's
Bro.
thoughts on it.
And it would
it's
Oh
true.
my
and it would
gosh.
make
I have
sense
the
too because she would basically sick Sam and Bucky on Karli, who has the serum that she would theoretically want back. No?
She clearly has another
No?
angle here too. That's
Yeah,
clearly
I
been
have
hinted at.
my theories. I have my theories on who the power broker is. I'll share them
You
later.
know what I would love to see? And I know this is very far out too. But what about a movie for Sharon Carter? Like a spy movie?
That could
I don't
work.
know, maybe.
Maybe
Could work.
If she is if
Throw
she
Bucky in there,
is
and then you got
I
power
think they
something.
have to
yeah.
build her
I
character up a lot more in this show, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
definitely.
do.
and they have to pair her with somebody else. I don't think her character
Yeah.
can headline a film or a show
Yeah,
right
she could be
now.
the
Yeah.
star, but
So,
she needs somebody else to kind of be
right.
somebody to play off of. And you're right; it
Mhm.
could be a Bucky, it could be a Sam, it could be somebody else. But it's more like a buddy cop type of thing. Even though it probably wouldn't be comedic, I
Yeah.
think it could work in that context.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. So any more thoughts on Sharon Carter?
She kicks butt.
So we can move on to the next tertiary character?
She kicks a lot of butt. She's
Yeah, she
that
does.
actress has done some really good training. I'm impressed with how well she does in the fight scenes, to be honest with you. She's actually one of the better ones on the show. So good for Sharon Carter in kicking butt in that role.
All right. So now let's go sort of a polar opposite direction to a character who's much more on the mundane side. Let's take a look at Sam's sister. That is another. I like how she represents the other part of his life. Like normally you expect a significant other, I guess, but I kind of like how they went the sister route instead, and it feels a lot more grounded too. Um, the boat, they have a boating they have a boating thing, and I kind of like the interplay between her and Sam. Like it's kind of she's the only one that he can't kind of just say, "Oh, everything's gonna be okay. I'm gonna use my superhero mojo," and like it'll be all well and good. She's like, dude, what are you talking about? Got to do a little better than that. But I guess it would make sense because she is his family. What do you guys think?
I like her character, but I feel like there should be a little bit, a tad bit more of exploring on her character, right? Because yeah, she has that relationship, and I love that relationship between Sam and her, because she's like the stubborn sister that can't receive charity, I guess, from Sam. And I would just love to see more of that, and to see more of Sam's background, I guess, and the struggles that he has to go through.
Yeah, she represents real world problems
Yeah,
in a
definitely.
fictional universe, and they do a very good job of kind of bringing that home. Um, I don't think she's in the show enough.
Yeah.
I think, but given the fact that it's only 6 episodes, I get it. But I would like to see that aspect of Sam and his family life and the struggles that superheroes have when you're not named Tony Stark. You know,
When you don't
so
have a whole bunch of money, basically, and you're not super rich. Who pays the
yeah,
Avengers,
exactly.
right? Was Tony Stark paying them? I guess that's the question that we still have to find out.
No, he wasn't.
I guess not,
He
right?
wasn't. Yeah, I think
There
they
was a
did
government
mention that in
They
contracts,
the
mentioned that in the banking thing,
government
yeah.
the
contracts he
banking
had got,
scene.
right? Something like that. That's how he
Right,
made money.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
So his sister Sarah. I agree with Eli. I would like to see more. I think we might actually end up seeing more, but I do definitely enjoy how she is his devil's advocate in a sense. They're she's not his moral compass because they have the same morals. She doesn't need somebody to kind of direct him morally, like other
Right.
characters like Bucky might. He's very, very
I think
established in that.
she.
Yeah, what's up?
I think she's more. I think she's more of a moral character than Sam is, because Sam is willing to use his fame to kind of get where he needs to be, and she is very much against that.
Yeah, right.
So I think she even plays it a little bit more close to the vest than Sam does.
I think it's less that though. I think Sam is, because of the show like kind of addressing racism. I think Sam is more in the thought process that, like, look, kind of like Isaiah Bradley, kind of like, let's say, the Tuskegee Airmen, like all of these real life examples of African Americans who fought for this country and received nothing in return. I think what Sam
Mm-hmm.
is more going for is like, look, I'm not asking for much. I just want a loan for my sister to continue her family business, which is only and this bank is around, all you around, you're only around because of like the work that me and my friends did. I'm not asking for you to treat me like a superhero or like some sort of godlike character. I just need a freaking bank loan. And I think that to him, it's like it's more, again, like it's because of how he sees that race plays a role into it. It's less that it's owed to him specifically
Oh
for those
yeah,
reasons, I guess.
Yeah.
no, I wasn't trying to make that comparison, but my thing is he is more willing to use his fame and fortune to kind of get to where a place is, and I think his sister is more prideful in that. You know what? We don't need. I want to do this on my own
Yeah.
merits as
Definitely.
opposed to because I just happen to be the Falcon sister. That's I think that's where I was trying to get at
Oh no,
more.
I
You
understood
know,
that, but like to
yeah.
me, I don't know that that's it though. I really don't think that that's it. But I mean, that's I guess a little beside the point, because with her, I think what it is with her character. There's a lot of pride there. They're both stubborn in
There
different
is.
ways.
Yeah.
That's the
Hmm.
issue. They're stubborn in different ways. I don't think it's about her being more moral than him and him being
Yeah,
less
maybe that
moral,
was.
taking advantage of
Yeah,
that.
maybe that's the wrong word that I
Yeah,
used
because
to
he's not
to
asking for
describe it.
much. You know what I mean? He's not,
Right,
again, he's not asking for like reverence or anything like that. He's just like, I want to live. I just want enough money just for my family business to survive,
right.
which was trashed by the way that the world is basically not caring about these people returning.
Yeah,
Um,
using that word was probably the wrong thing for me to say.
it's
It's not.
yeah,
I'm not suggesting that Sam is not
it's a
moral. I
different
think it's
angle, I
more.
guess.
She's more prideful than he is.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
In a
the
different
better
way. I still think
the
it's
better
I still
thing.
think
Yeah.
it's like not about more or less. I think it's about what motivates their pride. But
Right.
let me wrap this up because, like, I know somebody else wants to give their thoughts on the character as well, but yeah, she's been a really, really good character so far. I'm actually, like Eli said, just to really wrap up this point, I'm a little disappointed we haven't seen more from her, because I think that she was one of the best aspects, her interactions with Sam, outside of his interactions with the other characters, like Bucky and all of them, obviously, which are great. I think their interactions were really fantastic. So I want to see more of that. I want to see more of this character, and I want to see more of how she's affected and what her eventual outcome is as a result of everything going on around her.
Definitely.
Just to your point, and you said something that I think everybody is feeling. We're not seeing enough of these other characters, and I think that's kind of um, a consequence of the fact that we're only getting 6
Yeah.
episodes. And so, they're introducing all these really, really interesting characters, and we kind of know for a fact we're not going to get more because we're down to the last 2, and there's so much that needs to be wrapped up on the main plot line that these characters are probably going to get the short shrift on this. So, you know,
That sucks.
I think that's one of the consequences of having such a short show.
Yeah. Um. I If there isn't any more thoughts on Sam's sister, I don't think I'm really forgetting any other tertiary characters, right? Because we went over Sharon
Nobody else
and the Power
matters.
Broker by default. Sam's sister. I don't think there's anyone else, no?
No.
I think that's pretty
Yeah, so
much
I
going to cover it.
yeah.
The only thing that I do
So
know in regards to their runtime is we're going to get some really long final episodes. So hopefully they
yes,
take a lot more time with some of these characters in those final episodes and don't rush it, because that would really,
You know what?
really annoy me about the show if they did that.
Yeah, you know what? The MCU really needs to start focusing more on these secondary and tertiary characters,
And
because
TV
as much
shows.
as I love to see
Mm-hmm.
um like the primary characters like the stars and like all of them, I think it would be I think it's time for us to like get into like these heroes' backgrounds and all these villains' backgrounds too. I mean, who knows? Maybe there probably is more tertiary or secondary characters that relate to those villains and stuff like that.
I kind of think that that's why the shows exist, because you can't really put them in the films and stuff, but with the shows you can kind of introduce these and really, because it's long form, you can really bring out the characters and stuff. But you know it needs to be longer than 6 episodes,
Yeah.
in my opinion, anyway. So
So just to
I just
Jose?
actually, do you guys know there's no confirmation that this is the only season of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, right? We have that for WandaVision.
That's
We
what I
don't
was
have that for
thinking.
right,
this. There's a possibility of
no,
another season of this. Okay.
yes,
So
Ooh.
maybe
so
that's what we're going to
maybe
get,
they
and we
come
just
back.
don't know it yet.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you a question. I want to just throw this one quick theory on out here and see what you guys think about that.
Hmm.
I have a thought of who the power broker might be. Um, and I wanted to ask your opinion, because if it is, then it sets up a very interesting thing in the MCU. Um, I happen to think the power broker might be Thunderbolt Ross.
Oh, what?
What?
That's very
No.
And
possible. I agree.
and you know what? The thing about it is that once you do that, you open up the very real possibility that we're seeing a setup for the superhero team of the Thunderbolts,
The supervillain
Wait,
team.
so wait, how? How? Isn't
and
Thunder
and you have a chance of Zemo being the leader of the Thunderbolts, which he was at one point during the comic book run.
Well,
wait,
So
we have to get to the point where he becomes the villain, basically, where he gets his superpowers in the
Hmm.
comics. I forget what's the heck is his supervillain name outside of Thunderbolt Ross. I can't recall.
Red Hulk.
Red Hulk.
Red Hulk?
Duh. Red
Yeah.
Hulk. Well, he has to get his Red Hulk powers, I think, and this is a way that we can get to that, because we're going to get She-Hulk also. I think maybe they can start setting it up.
Wait,
And again, it makes sense with what Walt's saying. Like, he could definitely be a leader of that group, which includes Zemo, doesn't it? So
Yes,
yeah,
he
but
said it was Zemo.
yeah,
can
Walt said
someone
that exactly.
please?
So it makes
But
sense.
that's
How?
yeah.
How?
The other thing I struggle with is that Thunderbolt Ross is mostly,
In the
as far
movies.
as I know him from the Hulk, he's an anti-powers guy. Like, the reason why he has such a vendetta against the Hulk is that he can't control him. So now you want to add into the ringer more people with powers, and it even seemed when he had to kind of wrangle them in for the Sokovia Accords, he's like, "I'll have to deal with these people again." Like, come on. Like, it seems to me, while it's not very explicit, he's more of an I have an aversion to heroes doing things. We should let the government do
But that's
things.
that's kind of the reason why he became the Red Hulk, is because he realized he couldn't fight the Hulk.
Yeah, you can't control
In,
him if he's not strong enough,
right, he
basically.
can't control him, and so
Yeah.
you're kind of seeing that in the MCU also. With the Sokovia Accords, at least the attempt of control of these superheroes, which clearly is not taking. You know, and so maybe his thing is like, well, if I can't control them, then maybe I create my own group that I know I kind of almost like a Suicide Squad in a sense, right?
Mm,
Mm.
Whereas these are supers that I have full control of, So it's just a thought.
You would have to get into his background and why because as
we
of
already
right now,
have
we
that.
don't really have.
He's the
Yeah,
first.
but
He's
we
one of
don't
the
really.
first characters we have background on. Because remember, that's the first more MCU movie we got, the Hulk.
Yeah, but it
The
was like
Incredible Hulk.
so
Yeah, it
long ago. You'd
was.
need to rehash that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was like so little
Yeah,
too.
but you've seen him in various roles here, because he went from the general and now he's more of the politician sort of, right? And he's furthering these concept of, what, heroes are inherently dangerous.
Oh,
You know
oh my God!
what?
You might actually be right because She-Hulk is coming out.
Yes.
Oh,
What
frick!
I
So
say.
like I said, there is some level of kind of like this could happen, because they're dropping little nuggets here and there. And you know what, I truly don't believe that we're done with Thunderbolt
You
Ross
know why
at
else?
all.
You know why else he's coming back? Because it's already been confirmed, I believe, that Abomination is coming back to She-Hulk.
Yes.
Tim Roth
Yeah,
from way, way,
Nice.
way back. So how are you going to bring him back, and you're not going to bring Thunderbolt Ross back in some capacity? Maybe it won't be in this show, but it still makes some sense to set him up as a power broker. We all know who he is. You could just show him at the
Yep.
end, I'm the power broker, and then set him up a little bit further down the line in
Yeah.
some
Exactly.
other show. Set up his
you don't
backstory,
you don't
his
need
why.
you don't need to have everything done in this series. That's why you have all these other series coming out to kind of like give you that you know the fleshing out of his
Oh,
character again, to remind you who he is, to kind of put the wheels in motion for all of this stuff. So,
And
you know, like
and
Jose said, drop him at the very end. I'm the power broker. Go to credits. We're done.
he's going to
yeah,
be in
but like,
Black Widow too. He's confirmed to be in
oh,
Black Widow, Thunderbolt Ross.
oh,
There you
So
yeah.
go.
he
but
is going
Just
to have a
saying.
role.
what about the
I'm just
serums
saying.
though? Like, what was he originally gonna do with those serums? Because wouldn't that go against what he's?
Well, technically, now that I think about it, using the serums wouldn't be all that much of a problem because he sure as heck didn't have a problem letting Blonsky take the dang
Again,
thing.
yes.
Just
He doesn't have a
just
problem
look at
with
it
Uh-huh.
this way.
superpowered people. He has a problem with superpowered people he cannot control.
And just think of it this
Okay.
way: we've already seen this kind of instance in The Boys, right? Where you have a character that, in order to further his um, agenda, hey, you know what? We have super terrorists over here. I Nobody knows I gave them the serum, the V, right?
Man.
Yeah.
But that's a good way of saying, look, this is why we need this type of deterrent, because we have people like the Karli Morgenthaus of the world, who, again, going back to the thing where she's young, impetuous, reckless, immature, she's the perfect pawn for his agenda.
Yeah. He'd rather control who
So,
has powers,
It's
which is
all.
why he's mad
It's
at
all
Carly.
Hmm.
bots.
He needs to control who has those powers. It has to be people that he selects. In this
You
theory at
guys got
least.
me too. You guys got me too hyped up now.
I
It was,
can't
like
get
I
Red
said,
Hulks
just a
out of my
thought.
head.
And you know what? We've all seen what fan theories have done, especially lately with these shows. So, but hey, I'm putting it out there.
And
So
this also actually could be a good way to have Sharon be his right hand, because she could be working with him to try to get her get her pardon, to get like
Ooh.
to really, really, really like, because she's like semi-enthusiastic about Sam getting her a pardon, but she's also like, I don't need that stuff. Like, it seems like she doesn't need the help in a sense, even though she says she
And
does. So it would make sense.
would make sense why she's living that lavish lifestyle if she's being supported through government contracts.
And if
things
she's
of
the
that
one
nature,
who
so-
basically he sends out as the right hand to go get these people who are taking the serum, who have the super soldier serum, it's no coincidence that she showed up there. It wasn't an accident. So it could definitely be that. That's a good theory. I like that theory. I think it could make some sense. Mm-hmm.
There you go.
So I think that will be tying us up for today.
Okay.
Yeah. People want to share ratings on the season so far, or do we want to hold that off until?
I think we should hold that off until we can see the full thing in its complete scope.
In its entirety.
that works.
All right.
Yeah.
I think we're all enjoying it though, right?
Yes, most
I
definitely.
think we can definitely say that.
Yes, I would agree.
All right.
I would agree. All right, then. So that was our episode review, or our slightly past mid-season review of Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Missed it by an episode.
Yeah, there was another like kind of important movie that came out last week, so we had to jump on that a little bit.
You know what? You know what's gonna suck, Jose?
What?
The finale of the Winter Soldier also falls on the same weekend that we have another small little film that's coming out also.
Mortal Kombat.
Mortal
Yeah.
Kombat.
Oh my gosh.
Wow,
That's-
that's going to be difficult, right?
April 26th or something like that, right?
April 20. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, near the end of the month.
Yeah.
Which is looking very interesting thus far, but I guess we'll see. Hey, I don't have a problem with a lot of stuff to watch. I don't got any issues with that.
Oh, absolutely not.
But yes, Falcon and the Winter Soldier has been entertaining so far. I think we all agree on that, as we just said. We talked about the Loki trailer. We are looking forward to that as well. So you guys should definitely check it out. If you're checking out this review, you probably like Marvel, so you probably would want to see that as well, I would gather. Anyways, as usual, let's do our little sign-offs. Thanks everyone for joining us again. If there are any sound issues or artifacts, you know exactly what to do. Please let us know. Give us some feedback. You can find us on Instagram. You can check us out where all of your favorite podcast platforms are sold. You can reach out to us there. And of course, as we noted before, the best way to support your favorite podcast. And indeed, now, if you want to be a good humanitarian, the best thing you can do is review our podcast. Like, rate, share, subscribe, review the podcast. As noted before, our host for the podcast, Captivate, partnered with Podchaser. And just as a reminder, for every review that you write for our podcast in April, Podchaser is donating 25 cents to Meals on Wheels, America's Go Furthered Fund. And if we reply to your reviews, send us as many as you possibly can. If we reply to your reviews, that donation matching will be doubled. All right. So please interact. And if you like the podcast, this is the absolute best time for you to interact with us. So yeah, that's it. Thanks very much to all of our friends and fans out there. We'll be joining you again next week with another great episode. But as always, you guys know what to do at home right now. Please stay geeky, my friends.
Red Hulk is coming.